Here is certainly the Steve Malzberg Show, but unfortunately it is not Steve Malzberg, as you say. Steve's taking a couple of days off. Greetings, everybody, and welcome in. I'm Ed Berliner, along with Diane Diamond. Thank you so much for joining us, and again, a very happy Passover to all of our friends. We have been talking throughout the day a couple of things, but I think the one that we still have to answer, and we're going to try to answer it here in this segment, is what does it take to get fired in the Obama administration?
Yeah, nothing. I'm thinking like nothing. I mean, you can do fast and furious gun running, you can mess up Benghazi, you can mess up Obamacare, and nothing happens.
I think that really has to, when you talk to a lot of American voters, they'll say, even those, and I've talked to the Democrats who are firm Obama supporters, will say there is still a question. What is the president doing, and why does he not make people stand up and pay for their mistakes? And I think what happened with Kathleen Sebelius is certainly part of it. But then to think of her statement.
She wasn't fired.
Her statement on Sunday was really, really telling, where she basically said that the timeline, we never got it right. Then why didn't you get it right? What happened? Tell us.
Right.
Give us a little more meat.
And you know, she called it awful. It was awful the way it rolled out. Really? Well, the Republicans were saying, a lot of people, Democrat and Republicans, were saying that for a long time. So I have to ask the question, what does it take? Well, let me put it this way. Why can't we as Americans expect our public officials to shoot straight with us from the very beginning?
But
if it was not the right time to do it, then don't roll it out.
I need to bring up a really good question in there, though. Is America ready to be talked to that honestly?
That's a real good point.
Because there are many...
We're about to screw up Obamacare, so we better pause and do
is really working fine. So we'll just let Kathleen Sebelius sort of go on into history and bring somebody in who actually might be able to manage things better. But I mean, even with Lois Lerner, we can learn that people will engage in criminal activity and still not get fired. I'll be allowed to resign and retire, as she was with the IRS scandal. So it's not clear what it takes to get somebody fired in the Obama administration to show that there is accountability.
Well, let me ask you this, Grace, and then I'll ask Pete to comment on this as well, because what you said, where there's almost a fear to fire someone because then it would mean that we're not doing our job, or it would be a sign of failure. Grace, first of all, from you, do you think the American public would really see it as that it would be failure?
It's really hard for me to see that wouldn't have been better for them to have delayed the rollout and not have gone through the fiasco of the website. I think they would have been better to delay it for 2 years and for the American people to not have seen what a fiasco it is. But it really still a huge problem because they haven't even built the back end of the website. All of the payment information, all of the data that's going to the health insurance companies, it's still a gigantic mess, but that's being hidden from the consumer. They still have a lot of work to do. But yes, I think you're right. I think they would have been better off to have delayed it rather than exposed the failure that it really is.
Pete, same thing to you. Better to just go ahead and admit you failed and take your lumps?
At one point in time, but I think this administration has clearly committed that they're not going to admit any mistakes, that they're going to drive forward and say whatever they've been working on has been going just fine, and that for those who said it's broken, they're just wrong. Take a look, and you kind of went through the list yourself. Benghazi, the spin started the next day. This was all about some video where Americans caused the problem and not a terrorist attack by Al-Qaeda. Obamacare is just fine, according to the administration. It's Republicans who don't want to provide health care to millions of Americans who otherwise don't have access. Fast and Furious, that program wasn't the Obama administration. That started under Bush, and the IRS, nothing was wrong there. It's all about spin. They will never admit a mistake.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Grace Marie, let me ask you this, and this really goes to the heart of Obamacare. When and I wrote a lot about this in my column. When Obamacare was pitched, it was that it was going to give everybody insurance. Well, a lot of people already had insurance that lost it under Obamacare. So my question to you is, I was looking at your GalenInstitute.org website, and you were talking about all the changes that have had to be made to it. What overall generally has the enactment of Obamacare meant to everybody's health care premiums? Have they gone up or down?
Absolutely. Everybody's premiums are going up because many more things have to be covered now under Obamacare. And they say, oh, well, of course it's costing more, you're getting better coverage. But ask somebody who's barely making ends meet if it's okay with them that the federal government has basically canceled their own plan that they liked. Sometimes when somebody is in the middle of chemotherapy treatment, giving them a different plan that they say is better, but which consumers say don't have the same doctors, don't have the same health plans, that the same access to hospitals. So people are finding, and several polls have shown that a quarter of Americans already have been personally negatively impacted by Obamacare. And the arrogance of this administration to say, oh, we're going to cancel your old policies because we don't think they're good enough.
Because
and
ours
we're going
are
to make
better,
you buy
right.
these other policies that we say are good enough. And oh, by the way, you may have to pay twice as much for them. The American, that's not sitting well with the American people, and it shouldn't.
60 seconds left. I'm going to ask you both to comment on this. The CBO comes out today with a report that says Obamacare will cost $104 billion less than previously projected over the next 10 years. That would then reduce the deficit. But knowing full well that there's still question on the enrollment numbers, does this report really mean anything, Grace?
Well, one of the things they're saying is that people are not enrolling as fast as they expected. But remember, CBO thought that most of those 7 million people that would have enrolled by now would have been previously uninsured people. Well, they're not. This is just a churn.
That's
so we
right.
still are going to have probably as many or maybe more uninsured as we did before Obamacare. It's just going to cost us more. But CBO numbers, I mean, we should already know. We shouldn't believe that this is really has any relevance to our lives because they're also the ones that have been saying that this is going to reduce the budget deficit and lower health spending. That hasn't worked out well either.
Okay, Pete, 20 seconds. Your turn.
Yeah, I mean, Grace ended right where I was going to start. CBO, who cares? They get the numbers wrong all the time. They have no idea what's going on. Focus on the bigger issues of Obamacare. It takes away your freedom to choose your health care and your doctors. Those are the kinds of things we ought to be talking about, not CBO numbers.
I tend to agree completely. Pete and Grace, thank you so much for joining us. We'll talk to you both later.
Thank you
Great,
all.
thanks.
Thank you very much. Numbers, remember, numbers never
numbers.
lie, at least we're told.
But you know what? I tell you, I worry about what's going to happen when we say, okay, it didn't work. How are we going to dismantle this massive program?
Please.
Scares me.
Stop thinking about the future. Please stop
I must
thinking
be
logically.
racist if I'm thinking this way.
Don't do that, okay?
Sorry.
When we come back, the first openly gay NCAA Division I basketball player. But is it really big news? That and a whole lot more. Ed Berliner, Diane Diamond sitting in for Steve Mosberg. We're back right here on Newsmax TV.
We don't just talk about the news, we talk to those making news. This is the Steve Mosberg Show.
Once you kind of